It's an image that has been etched in our minds. A family is a married couple with 2.5 kids.
Oh, great, Dad.
Yeah, oh, great, Dad.
But today, only a minority of American families are traditional two-parent nuclear families.
We're in a moment of cultural lag. We have an old, archaic idea of what family is. It existed in this one freakish moment of history between 1950 and 1965.
So how did the nuclear family fail? And what do modern families actually look like? This is David Brooks. He wrote this Atlantic cover story about the history of the family in America.
Through most of history, family was an economic unit. It was for making the farm work.
In 1800, 75% of American workers were farmers, and most of the other 25% worked in small family businesses. In the South, of course, slavery separated many black families. But across most of society, people lived in big, extended families.
There were uncles, nieces, nephews around. If a relationship failed, if somebody died, there were plenty of other people to pick up the slack.
During the Victorian era, the family reached its peak in the US and Britain.
I hope you are behaving very well.
The number of people who lived in extended families was higher in the Victorian era than ever before or ever since. The world that people had known was falling away. And they felt not only economically under threat, they felt morally under threat.
So the extended family functioned as a moral unit. In it, children were taught right from wrong, and traditional values were preserved. Then, as factories opened in big US cities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, young people left home to chase the American dream. The families they started were nuclear families. By 1960, the nuclear family dominated. Nearly 78% of children were living in one.
You had what they called a cult of togetherness. So there was tremendous social pressure to live in one of these nuclear families.
But the conditions for its success were very particular to the post-war era.
Everything conspired to make the nuclear family stable and possible. Wages went way up, so you had men who could have a single earning household. Women were relegated to household. You had high union membership, high church attendance, high social trust.
These independent people spend the profit from their labor to maintain the highest standard of living in the nation.
By 1965, that was over. And the stable, cultish nuclear families of the 1950s have been replaced by the distressed families of every decade since.
Over the past half-century, the share of people living alone in America has doubled. People are marrying later and divorcing more. The general fertility rate is dropping. And the stress from this change has fallen disproportionately on less affluent households who must perform all the work that was once done by members of an extended family. This burden isn't evenly distributed. Women still spend significantly more time on housework and childcare, according to recent data.
Affluent people can afford to buy extended family. So the switch from an extended family to a detached nuclear family has been great for those who are privileged. It's given us way more freedom. It's been sometimes cataclysmic for those who aren't.
But around the globe, 38% of people still live in extended family units.
In Gambia, the average household size is 13.7 people.
In Mexico, many live within kinship groups of up to 70 people. There are disadvantages to the extended families of the past.
Sometimes you're never alone, you don't get a lot of privacy. And in the old days, one of the disadvantages of extended family, the women were stuck in the kitchen cooking for 25 people. And so they have real downsides. The most interesting trend of the past few decades is the creation of chosen families. And this phenomenon really came to prominence in the 1980s in San Francisco in the gay and lesbian community. People who have been cast adrift by the breakdown of the nuclear family, they've lost touch with one or both parents, and they're sort of floating, and they come together and say, you know, we'll be a family together.
A chosen family can help to share the challenges and the rewards of modern life, and make it more equitable.
We need to extend love to others. And if we don't have a chance to do that, something goes really wrong. A family is a place where you offer care, you offer unconditional love. The bond between you is no longer transactional, it's no longer even voluntary. And we're seeing that spread not just in biological ways, but in non-biological ways too. It's one of the more hopeful things I see in society.
This is a special show today because we have this is a collaboration. So this is a Living Proof podcast, and this is a Life is Everywhere podcast collaboration. So I want to introduce my friend, Celina Sanabria. So if you can let the people know, introduce yourself.
Yo, what up? I'm here. The host of Life is Everywhere podcast. I've been doing podcasting since January 21st. That was my very first episode. I have about 5,000 downloads and listens, and my passion is definitely with what I do. So those of you that have listened, that tuned in, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Walter. I really do appreciate it so much, and I'm ready for the show. Let's get on the road.
So let's do this.
Yes.
All right. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about today is family. We're going to talk about the family structure. What is a family, right? So what the video briefly gave you an idea of is the idea of what was family considered and what is family now. So one of the things that they focused on was the idea that people that are affluent can buy extended members of the family. And why is this? Right? Okay, so when we look at the etymology for the word family, I'm going to read this out loud. Paul, if you could share my screen real quick. Early 15th century, family denotes servants of a household, from the Latin root word familia, family, servants, domestics collectively, the servants in a household. Thus also members of a household, the estate, property, the household, including relatives and servants. Abstract noun form from famulus, meaning servant or slave, which is of unknown origin. So we can see in the etymology of the word, the whole idea of being able to buy an extended family and to, let's see, what's the term that I want to use here? To make your life more efficient by hiring servants, right? It's in the root of the word family itself. So growing up, what was your idea of family growing up? Growing up in the inner city, what was your idea of family? How was family always portrayed to you?
I know a lot with my family. I grew up with Losada's restaurant. That was my grandfather's restaurant. So what brought us together was pretty much food. You know, I started working at the age of 14, and I just remember growing up seeing the work ethic being around. So my grandmother, you know, she worked at the restaurant, my sister, my cousins, I mean, and it was beautiful, you know. And then we had the softball team also, and my dad was big with softball, as I remember, because he was around for a little bit when I was younger, and my grandfather owned the softball team. So we used to have huge gatherings in the backyard, and it started to dwindle away the older I got. And now it's like people only really want to gather when it's so-called holidays. But then it's like, what happens when you don't celebrate holidays like myself? I started losing that with my family. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out, like, how do I do this to where I can still have a family gathering? And I made it to where I would make big meals at my house. Food is usually always how it brings the family together. So I would make, family dinners at home, and I would invite, family over so that they don't really miss us, my right. Children and I, during those times that we're not there. But I mean,
that's awesome. So like one of the things about family is everybody's perception of family will be different. So as somebody that grew up, I grew up with a teen mother, I grew up with a teen father, right? And for the large majority of my life, there was a disconnect, right? My dad wasn't necessarily there for the large majority of my life. I did have a father figure at some point, but my idea of family was always revolved around my mother and my grandmother, mm-hmm. and my two immediate siblings. Cousins and things like that didn't exist for me because we were very, to some degree, my mom was kind of like a pariah after she had the baby young. That was mm-hmm. frowned upon, and teen mother, she ain't gonna get her life together. Mm-hmm. And my mom wound up going to get 2 degrees, and she raised a pretty good man in the process. But back then, things like that were frowned upon. So our idea of family was very, it's just us. Mm-hmm. It's just our little group. And over the years, I've made friends more like family.
Right.
And the reason for that is because in the root word of friend, you could bring my screen up real quick, Paul, so I can read this definition. Friend comes from the Old English root friend, one attached to another by feelings of personal regard and preference. From Proto-Germanic frihohans, meaning lover and friend. So we see in the word family, right, this connotation with the word servant and slave, and then we see in friend this whole idea of lover and companion. So over the years, as we get older, we start to make friends, family. We have those friends that we've known 20. Paul's like perfect example. I've known him since we were kids. He's like family.
Right.
You know, we don't have to have the same blood.
Right.
I have family members that we have the same blood and same last name that I don't talk to because I have a disconnect with them. You know, so now, like the video was trying to explain, we're choosing our family now instead of just accepting what was given to us. So one of the topics that you wanted to talk about today is calming down in life, right? So I want you to elaborate. That was one of my favorite episodes. I think it's like episode 2. So I want you to elaborate on what you mean by calming down.
I mean, we get so wrapped up in life with everything going on, things happen, and we don't really know how to deal with it. So emotions take over. And this is coming from me being one of the most emotional people I've ever met in my life. But I didn't know really how to deal with them when they came, especially as a teenager. And then, you know, since my mother worked so much, it was kind of like I was raising myself in a sense. You know, I had my sister, she was 7 years older than me, so that was kind of like my role model, and I'm trying to be just like her. But it caused a lot of confusion in my mind. Like when I'm sad, when I'm mad, the only really way I knew how to vent was to just get angry and forget really what's going on and just lash out and not think, you know. And I realized getting older, how, especially after having children, and them seeing me angry and seeing them get scared and not know, like, whoa, mom, what's wrong? Calm down, you know, like, why are you so? And I had to start asking myself that, like, why am I so mad? Why can't I just calm down? What can I do to calm down? And I had to learn by reading, by listening to, you know, YouTube videos. I didn't really have somebody to reach out to, nor really did I have a podcast to listen to. So it was like, I definitely have to get an episode out here to help people and know that it's some simple things that you can do to calm down so that you can be in that moment and deal with what is actually happening instead of trying to mask it or, you know, just beat around the bush.
Right.
And simply just starting with, like in my episode 2, I break down some things that you can do, and I'm sure you have some things that we can do and techniques that'll benefit us. But one of the most simplest things I've ever done when I got emotional is just take a deep breath and just step back and really analyze the depths of what is going on. What has me so angry? And calming down to be able to know, like, my answer. Because when you're angry, you don't think, you know, and anger is not bad. It's not. It's how you deal with it that makes it bad. You know, the punching the walls, the cursing, the saying whatever is on your mind without really taking a deep breath you know, thinking before you speak.
So one of the things we're going to touch on today is how these idea of calming down can fix the family structure, a family structure that's broken. So like she touched on, a lot of times misplaced anger, right, causes this chaos and this friction in the household. Perfect example is you had a long day at work, right?
Right.
And let's say you haven't went through the process of self-development, learning how to manage your anger. You come home and your spouse is, for whatever reason, occupied with something else. You came home with an expectation, right? Yeah. Which was your first mistake. Came home with an expectation of how your life is supposed to be or how you want it to be. And a lot of times we don't take into consideration the other things that people have going in their life. It's funny that you mentioned breathe, because right here, when we look on this list right here, this particular article is from Healthline. And the very first thing on the list is breathe, right? And what does the doctor say about breathing? Breathing is the #1 and most effective technique for reducing anger and anxiety quickly, says Scott DeHorty, LCSWC of Delphi Behavioral Health. Okay? He goes on to say, when you're anxious or angry, you tend to take quick, shallow breaths. DeHorty says this sends a message to your brain, causing a positive feedback loop, reinforcing your flight or flight response. That's why taking long, deep, calming breaths disrupts the loop and helps you calm down. There are various breathing techniques to help you calm down. One is three-part breathing. Three-part breathing requires you take one deep breath and then exhale fully while paying attention to your body. Once you get comfortable with deep breathing, you can change the ratio of inhalation and exhalation to 1:2. You slow down your exhalation so that it's twice as long as your inhalation. So, with the breathing exercise, this is something that all of us tend to do without wanting to. Like you get really mad and
right, yeah.
Right? So this is something that we do
Absolutely.
naturally anyway.
Yeah.
But now understand if you're doing it voluntarily, right? And you're doing it actively, right? Because even in esoteric circles, they practice this method of breathing. So this is one of the ways that we can kill toxicity in the household, understanding our emotions and the drama that we bring into the house. A lot of times we bring drama home from work, right? What does that got to do with the household? Right? Well, we bring that drama. We got into it with a coworker. Now we bring that drama into the house. The kids bring their drama from school into the house, right? And as parents, we're obligated to address all of this. Another topic that you wanted to really get into today is the relationship between parents and kids, right? Where do you think parenting has gone in the modern world in comparison to what it was?
I really see a lot of parents wanting to be their child's friend, like best friends, like as if there's no raising that needs to be done. And like the biggest thing with that, I feel like it's parent first and friend after. And friend after the raising has been established. You know, it's not forever. You're just, of course, you'll always be the parent that'll always be your child, but it's not forever. You guys, like now, the relationship I have with my mother is nothing like when it was when I was growing up. I appreciate having her and knowing that I can call her like a friend. You know, I don't have to be like, oh, that's my mom, I'm scared to talk to her. I can open up more, and she listens. And I think my mom has finally got to that place now to where with both of her daughters being grown and having their own children, like she realizes I don't really have to mother them no more. They're mothers themselves, you know? And I think like there's like this misconception of what does it mean to be my child's friend? Like, what does that even mean? How do I know if I'm being their friend or if I'm not? And like some people are like, well, is being their friend like, you know, hanging out? Can I not hang out with them? Can I have like not have good times? Does it mean I have to like be serious and strict all the time? No, it doesn't mean that. It means like not allowing behavior that is unacceptable to be acceptable, to not drugs with your kids, to not allow vulgarity in the home, to just keep a child in a child's place. And a lot of parents are like, well, you know, it's what is the saying, like say as I say, not as I do, something along those lines, which is great and fine, but they're watching you. They're your every move. So you can say until you're blue in the face, don't act like this, don't be like this, but if this is what I'm showing you, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
They're watching you, you know? So it's just when you have behavior that needs to be, let me see where I write it. I'm sorry, I wrote it down. I just wanted to make sure. When you laugh with your child, like say they're cursing at you, they're telling you no, you're telling them to do something, no, and you're laughing it off. Laughter with a child is making it almost acceptable. Right. And we all want to be accepted, especially by our parents and our close kin, you know, like we want to be accepted. So, oh, she's laughing, you know, my dad's laughing, it's okay. Well, it's not okay. And you making them feel that it's okay at a young age, it's going to be okay as a teenager, it's going to be okay as an adult, and now you have even greater issues. And it can't be that. You have to focus on the parent. You have to focus on raising your child, you know. But that's just really my biggest thing is just you don't have to be serious and strict all the time. You can have a good time with your kids. You can hang out with them. That's not.
No, I agree with everything you said. What I want to add is that a lot of this is by design, right? We live in a world that I talked on this on the episode about morals, right? How the powers that be try to steer us into this state of moral relativity, right? Where things that used to be clearly defined as good and bad are no longer that clearly defined, right? One of those things is pedophilia, right? We see this uptick in where the scientific community and the medical community is trying to put pedophilia in our collective conscious as sexual preference or mental illness and not a crime.
Right.
But the level of trauma, right? Because this is part of the things that break down the family structure, right? You have the man and the woman are both at work now. and the kids are not supervised by the parent anymore. They're in the school system, they're in the daycare system, they're at a babysitter, they're at a secondary family's house, right? And we don't really know these people, right? They say one of the greatest secrets in the world that people do amongst each other is they never really know each other completely. And this is the things that allows people to act, right? They never really get to know the person completely. So, you know, we got family members that are pedophiles that we don't address it, right? Because we carry these generational curses and we don't feel like this is something that we could do something about. And the kids grow up with this, right? Like you were saying, we enable them to continue their negative behavior. Perfect example is like the little girls that dress very promiscuous and provocative. If their mother accepts that, it's gonna be okay.
Right.
If they see their mother being promiscuous, they're gonna identify with that because that's the first hero that they have is their mother. If they see their father treating their mother like a piece of shit, the son usually grows up and he treats his relationships the same way because the standard of masculine behavior was established by his father, or no father is there.
Right.
Because that's just as now you don't have no guidance. That's worse than having a bad father. You don't have nobody there. That's the situation a lot of people in my generation found ourselves in, right? We raised ourselves.
Yeah.
And we learned how to be men on the streets. And, you know, a lot of us are like on our second, third relationships now, right? We're not with our baby mamas and none of that because we weren't mentally mature to understand what we were doing. It's now that I'm 38 that I'm able to sit back and reflect and be like, yo, sometimes I got issues. Sometimes I'm toxic. Sometimes I'm not correct. At 20, I couldn't do that.
Same.
Right? But that's usually the age where most of us want to fall in love, right? We want to fall in love when we're young before we have an understanding. So then we create these toxic families. And these toxic families carry on, right? Now it ruins your image, your perspective of love, right? That first one that breaks your heart, now every relationship you get into after that is tainted, right? Because you carrying that baggage with you from the first thing, not understanding that it was just a moment of you just not being mentally mature to understand what you were getting yourself into.
Right.
You know? So generational curses. This is something that I know that you speak on. So can you elaborate for the viewers? How do you perceive generational curses, and what can we do to break them as individuals?
I mean, I just feel with generational curses, it's just a lack of knowledge. So many people have a generational curse that they don't even know they have it. So that is one of the main reasons why it continues in this revolving door, and all these families just keep breaking down because it's just lack of knowledge. And I had to learn that for myself too, because I grew up in a broken home, you know, and what I do remember growing up is a lot of anger and domestic violence and drugs and this environment that as a child I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that it didn't feel good. I don't like the way I feel. I'm sad and hurt, and I don't know what to do with these feelings. I am a child. And not having a parent to sit down and elaborate that for me, like say, you know, I just witnessed a fight with my mom and dad. Neither did my mom nor my dad come sit next to me after this huge fight I just seen with my own two eyes to really try to make me understand what just happened, or even let me know like, hey, that was horrible. You should have never seen that. I am sorry. I'm going to do my best to never let that happen again. I didn't have anything like that. What I had is reoccurring fights. And now I'm seeing it on the street and other people with their families and everybody's fighting. So it's like, where is this love? I'm craving this love, you know? And then with growing up around alcoholics and the drugs, those are all generational curses. Because if you look down the lineage, you're like, okay, so grandpa had a drinking problem. My uncle has a drinking problem. My dad has a drinking problem. My cousin. And it's like, I don't want to have a drinking problem. What do I do? You know, like you can have casual drinks and have a good time, but I had to really instill in my mind, like I looked at my upbringing as what I don't want for me. But it was hard because I had to go through a lot of things to really know, like, no, you really don't want this for you. Right. You don't want a domestic violence relationship. And subconsciously, I found myself in these relationships that were so toxic because I didn't have that parent, that guidance.
Toxic became normal.
It was normal. But then I started getting to that part again, like I felt as a child, this doesn't feel good. something's not right with this.
Right.
I don't feel good. I don't feel love. Like, what? I was questioning what was love. So knowing that I didn't even understand what love was, that means I don't really love myself.
Right.
And if I don't love me, I can't love you. You know what I mean? And I can't realize when somebody really is loving me because I've never had that healthy dynamic around me. And I had my first child at the age of 17. Definitely not an age to have a child.
Right.
You know what I mean? And especially coming from toxic backgrounds and not understanding really even what the depth of raising a child. And now I'm a child having one. And you could, I still was really young with my kids and, not knowing what to do. Still trying to kick it and party and do that. And I did that. And I had my second child at, 21. And I was like, okay, this is it. I got to buckle down. And I started just reading more. And I realized like my circle was changing, things that I was witnessing with other people and how they were raising. Because there was a lot of, teenagers that was having children. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hang out every weekend. I don't want to drink every day. I really do want better for my kids. And I have to take that stand. I don't want this generational curse anymore. And it's like, I feel like we just have to take that ownership. We have to sit down and reflect on our here and now. Like, what are you doing? What are you not doing? What can you change? And start doing that, taking baby steps. Like if you smoke cigarettes all the time or smoke weed in front of your kids and you're doing this behavior and they're growing up, they're watching you. And like my youngest son is 7 and he'll call you out on something. I don't allow smoking around my kids. I don't like it. I never really did. Even when I did smoke, when I did smoke cigarettes and weed, it was something about looking at a child and smoking next to them that's like, oh, they have no say so. And I know this doesn't smell good to you. I know you're coughing over there. I've been in situations where people are smoking, the kids are coughing, and it's like nothing. Oh, I smoke around them all the time. That's not okay. Right. And as adults, we need to change our perspective on how we view things. Like it's because generational curses will continue forever if you don't.
Yeah, and just like we practice like bad psychological habits, we practice a lot of bad financial habits too. So like I always encompass generational curses with bad generational spending, right? We don't build for generational wealth.
Yeah, that was definitely another one.
Most of us live for our life right now, right? I don't know if I'm going to be here 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, so we're living for the moment. That's something that's instilled on us through music, right? Oh, live for the now, YOLO, you only live once, right? You only die once too, right? So it's important that you live that one life that you have correctly and abundantly and in the sense of knowing, right? No longer in a state of ignorance. So before we got on camera, I was explaining to you a little bit of my past as far as what I was doing in the streets and stuff. And this was another example of generational curse, right? I had a father that, he did his thing in the streets and went to prison. And even though I wasn't around him, his absence led me to the same result, right? Because prison and poverty and all these things that we see is a result of a fatherless community. The mothers are always there in one form or another, whether they're there physically or the mothers carry the burden. A lot of the fathers, right, we get excused from the burden, right, because, the mother leaves and we assume that the next guy that's going to come and finish the job and take and be the savior. Or, a lot of guys never wanted kids to begin with. This is psychological decisions that a lot of us make when we get into relationships or even business partnerships, right? And it sounds good at the beginning. Everything sounds like, oh wow, but there's always the great axiom: if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. And we get into these concepts where we're 18, 19, and we think concept of forever is a really big concept. Somebody tells you forever, you're like, 20?
A very long time.
And we believe that. That's the first lie we start to believe. And family is something that is just a word, right? As you go through life, you'll have that friend that's did more for you than a cousin, and that person becomes your go-to. I have a best friend right now. Like me and him, we're like cousins. His mom and my mom knew each other before we were born. He's more brother to me than my real brother. Right. And it's sad that I have to say that because I love my little brother all the same. Yeah, but for sure. I got people that are not my family closer to me than my family. And a lot of times, You know, our family was one that we had a lot of issues. Like the same thing with the holidays. I don't really celebrate holidays because holidays was always drama time.
Oh,
It was
right.
good till about 11, 12 o'clock.
Everybody's drinking.
And then once the liquor kick in or whatever
Right.
else they were doing, you know, the bottles start flying upside people's heads. And you was looking at somebody's wife and somebody getting stabbed, right?
Wow, yeah.
So, like, that's not the life I want for me, you know, like. So I try to take steps to not have an environment like that. Now, me personally, I am a smoker. I'm gonna be fully transparent here, and I am a smoker. My kids know not to be anywhere in the same room at me when I'm doing, like, they're not allowed to even listen to adult conversation, right? Because there's stuff that they don't need to hear.
Exactly.
And that's our responsibility to know what's acceptable for a kid to hear and what is not acceptable. One of the things I feel is not acceptable for the kids to hear is what's going on between the parents of the house as far as finances, sexual things that are going on, any type of gossip, because kids take that information and they harness it and then they go talk about it with their friend.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody at the school knows that
what's going
mommy
on.
and daddy got this beef going on.
Yeah.
So, dealing with anger, I want to go back to that because I have this list here. I want to go down this list. We already touched on the first one about breathing. The second one is called admit that you're anxious or angry. And this allows yourself to say that you're anxious or angry, right? It's like that, being honest, right? When you label how you're feeling and allow yourself to express it, the anxiety and anger you're experiencing may decrease. Can you give an example how this might have worked for you by just admitting that, yo, I'm out of pocket, I need to chill, and how this helped you diffuse a situation?
I took it with like the 12-step program because that's not just dealing with alcoholics and drugs. Like, you can assess yourself with the 12-step program on emotions and just recognizing I am angry and saying that to yourself. Like, you know what? I know I'm just out of my element right now. This is not my usual self. I don't like how I'm acting. I don't like how I'm reacting. And just kind of talk to yourself. And if you can talk out loud, even better, because now you're hearing it and your mind can transfer things differently throughout your body because now it's actually hearing you instead of your thoughts taking over. So just recognizing your emotions as soon as you can, you know, like, and deal with them. Don't just like, okay, I'm angry, I don't want to be angry. Okay, now I'm happy, I'm going to be happy. No.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's something that a lot of people have a tendency to do. They're upset about something, and then instead of addressing the situation, they'll hold it in, right? And they don't even realize that holding it in is just letting the anger fester and build up more. And
Until you explode.
you know, instead of addressing the situation right there, we hold it in, and then when it comes out 10 times worse.
Yeah.
You know?
And then everything comes out. And now we got 10 problems when we were just dealing with one. Like, why are you bringing up all of you should have discussed that when the time was, when it was happening? And I feel like it's not fair for a lot of people, especially like in intimate relationships and things like that. Like, if something's bothering you, don't. My biggest thing when came to a relationship, I cared so much about the other person's feelings. And I'm like, okay, so if I bring up something that's bothering me, it might hurt their feelings. So I don't want to hurt their feelings. I love them. I don't want to hurt the people that I love. So I kept a lot of things inside, but I was hurting myself. So it goes back to self-love. You have to love yourself too. You don't want to hurt yourself. You can't just not want to hurt other people that you love and forget about yourself. If it's hurting you, you have to address that. And almost not like I don't care about your feelings, but in the end of the day, I have to live with me before anybody else. We all we got, you know? So just acknowledging it and dealing with it right when it happens and bringing it up, because if not, it festers. And now, you know, you just spilled my cup of coffee that you made for me, and now we talking about last week when I didn't turn the car on or whatever. Like, wait, what? I didn't even know that was a problem.
So that's a good segue, because actually the very next thing on the list is challenging your thoughts, right? And this means part of being anxious or angry is having irrational thoughts that don't necessarily make sense. These thoughts are often the worst case scenario. You might find yourself caught in the what if cycle, which can cause you to sabotage a lot of things in your life. When you experience one of these thoughts, stop and ask yourself one of the following questions. Is this likely to happen? Is this a rational thought? Has this ever happened to me before? And what's the worst that can happen, and can I handle it, right? So, like, you know, a lot of us, we do this, right? If any of us been in a situation where we've dealt with a family member or a fake friend or a bad relationship, right? We tend to make this the reality for everybody. Like, oh, everybody's fake.
Right.
Everybody's gonna do what's dirty, right? And it becomes a big generalization, and we develop this system of not trusting people, right? And that does a disservice to us because it blocks us a lot of times from blessings that we could have received, right? If we wasn't so defensive, there's been a lot of times when, somebody probably had really good intentions for you, right? And you just was like, I'm not trying to hear that. I heard that before, right? I heard that line before.
Yep.
So we've attached that line to expectations, right? Well, he's saying this because he's expecting this, or this person is expecting this. We don't go through the process of dealing with people individually, right? So is this a rational thought, right? This is something that we got to ask ourselves. If we know with irrefutable fact that each individual person is different, then we disprove ourselves by assuming that all these people are going to act the same in the same scenario.
Exactly.
But this is why we get into irrational forms of thinking, right? Because we allow our experiences to become our reality. What's the worst that can happen, right? Can I handle it? So for many of us, I'll let you open up on this one because this is something that you wanted to talk about, the grieving, right? What's the worst that we can handle as individuals? For many of us, the death of a child or death of a parent. I don't know if I could go on, right? And I'm being honest. I've never been soft. I've never been scared, but I don't know if I could go on not having one of my kids. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I could go on losing certain people in my life. That's just me being honest with who I am.
Right.
However, we've dealt with these things and we're still here. A lot of us have lost family members that we thought we wouldn't be able to make it, and we're still here.
Right.
My grandmother, she lost a son young, right? Suicide. And she never recovered from that. Mentally. Right? But she still existed for another 60 years. She's still alive now, right? Broken, right? So a lot of us, we can handle this, and a lot of us will carry this damage with us in life. But we have the opportunity. This is the good news in all of this. We have the knowledge now that we can fix all of this, right? So I want you to talk about this particular thing because this is something that you want to address. About things being tough and grieving and.
Yeah, I mean, the grief. We're all gonna lose someone that we love. We all, we all grieve differently, and that's fine. But the thing is, we have to feel in order to heal. And I've had a lot of people close to me lose people close to them, and it kind of scares me because again, thank God I've never lost a child, and my parents are, my mom, my grandmother. I lost my grandfather, and that was almost like the closest thing I had to a father figure, and I was still really young when it happened, but it affected me because I'm like, oh my goodness, the only man that I had that I could kind of look up to and felt that had my back and unconditionally loved me, he's gone. So now what? What do I do? And I'm young trying to deal with that. Right. And I mixed a lot of smoking weed. I was smoking heavier. I was drinking more, very young age doing that. Doesn't help the process. But you have to deal with what you feel and just go through it. Like my son, his dad just lost his dad, and he is taking it really, really hard. And I try to put myself in people's place, but if you've never gone through it, you can't say well, if this happened to me, this is how I'm going to be. You don't know until you go through it. But I do know one thing: once we become parents, and you lose a parent, and you have children, I feel it's, my opinion, very selfish to think of any thoughts of suicide, anything along those lines, because you have children to live for. It's not fair to them. And I had to ask my son because he's looking at his dad and kind of freaking out like, Mom, and I have to put this tough skin on and, be there for my son in a way that I've never had to because he has never seen his dad like this. So now my son has this somberness to him, and he says he's okay, and I know he's not, and I'm trying to, let him know it's okay to talk about things. But I asked him, and I was very transparent with him. And I said, your dad doesn't want to live right now. He has to go away for some time to get his mind together so that he doesn't make the mistake of taking his own life. Right. And I asked him, when you get older, you know, Lord willing, and you have children, and you know, you lose your dad, because we're all gonna die. That's something everybody has in common. We will all die. And when and if you live, you know, you outlive your dad and stuff, are you gonna want to take your life when your dad passes away?
Right.
And he sat for it. I feel like my son at 11 years old, he really processed it. And I just have to be, you got to be real now with kids, especially nowadays. There's no beating around the bush. There's no sugar coat. You just have to be real in a way that, you know, they would understand, not just like cursing and all
Yeah,
this
because
crazy
the
stuff.
negative information that they're getting is just as aggressive. So you have
Yeah.
to be aggressive with the positive.
Yeah, exactly. And just reinforce that this is okay. This conversation that we having is real, and it needs to be had, because this is happening now. That we've never gone through something like this, but we have to have this conversation now because we're going through this. And he told me, no, I wouldn't.
And not only that, but now when he gets older and he builds a family of his own, right? He has the method of conflict resolution, of grief resolution that he's overcome. Because this goes back to what's the worst that can happen, and can I handle it?
Right.
Now he learns that I can, right? Because the standard of it has been established. And not only that, but you know, kids are very impressionable, and just imagine what that does to the psychology of a kid when they see their hero and
Broken down.
right? I remember, you know, my other kid's mom, when they got really bad towards the end, you know what I'm saying? It was my kids that really made my mind up for me to leave, because they was like, Daddy, you always look sad. You always look angry. You always look, you know, and it was affecting my relationship with them, right? Because now I was like, I didn't want that, right? So this comes to the next thing on our list: release the anxiety or anger, right? Recommends getting emotional energy out with exercise. Go for a walk, go for a run. Engaging in some physical activity releases serotonin to help you calm down and feel better. However, you should avoid physical activity that includes expression of anger, such as punching walls or screaming.
Yes.
This has been shown to increase feelings of anger, and it reinforces the emotions because you end up feeling good as the result of being angry. This is something that I used to do to myself, right?
Same.
I get in an argument. I can't punch this person for whatever reason, so I'll go to the bar and punch somebody. Now I have more problems.
Yeah.
Now I have triple the amount of problems, right? Because I took, instead of releasing this anger or anxiety correctly, right, and just saying, yo, I'm angry, I'm upset, we need to talk, I took it out on somebody that, quite frankly, had nothing to do with it. They just happened to look at me the wrong way. What are you looking at? Pow. Now I got problems. Now I got more problems than what I originally had. And this is something that, you know, anger is like very contagious.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can see, like, I remember when we were younger, you know, you see your friend mad.
Yeah,
now you're mad.
Like, who we gonna go beat up? What's happening?
And you're like, I don't even got nothing to do with this, but you're mad because they're mad.
Exactly.
And we have to learn how to control this. And calm it. Like, do you have a valid reason for being mad? Is there another way that we can handle this that doesn't involve somebody dying or getting hurt?
Definitely have to be that friend.
So I want you to talk about what methods do you use? Like, do you use exercise? Do you use? I remember you talking about music. Music
is a getaway. You know, music has helped me through a lot. I'm so grateful. And between my deep breaths and music and something with water is just very calming to me. So if I just shut the world out and take a bath and just have the lights off and put a candle on and just have music, just soothing music, not no rah. You don't want anything that, if you're already angry, you don't need to go listen to Nuck If You Buck. Right. You know what I mean? Avoid that at all costs until you've calmed down and now you're like, you know, I can listen to it. I can handle it now. I'm not going to get riled up again. But just figuring yourself out, like what works and what doesn't, what makes you more angry, and avoid that until you have come back to your normal self and you can handle certain things now being around them. I write a lot. I read. And that's not like reading wasn't really my big thing growing up. I wasn't like, let me just always read. That's something that I've developed. I grew a liking to certain like self-help books and like realizing they're really helping me and I want more because I don't really have somebody to reach out to that was of a like-minded being. Now I do. I've definitely realized the type of people that I should keep around. And it's like there's no love lost with a lot of people. It's just in order for me to keep my progression and to keep moving forward in the direction that I'm going, I have to cut ties with people that aren't doing any service for me in a beneficial, positive way.
Right.
You know, because I've had people that was around that I love them dearly, and every time they come around, they come with just all this just baggage and drama and this happened and that, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going through none of that, thank God. But now I feel like I'm going through it because you're putting this on me, and now I feel like I have to be there for you because I love you, and I don't know, I can't fix your problems for you. And then you start giving them advice that they've asked for and they really can't handle, nor do they really want it. And then they're mad at you. So now we got a problem. So it's like, whoa. The energy
They start
is
saying you changed.
yeah, like
you
I
have to-
get the big one for me is you think you're better than everybody. And people that I've had tell me that, I knew I had to cut them off because I am me, I am better. I'm a better version of me. It's not that I'm trying to be better or compete with anyone. I just would love to be an inspiration and motivate other people to be their best being. I don't want to be better than you. Nobody's better than anybody.
We're all each individually.
Yeah, we're unique in our own
We're trying
self.
to be best versions of ourselves.
Yeah,
You know?
which ultimately makes the world a better place. Like I feel like we all have to do this and should want to do this for ourselves, which then benefits our home, which then benefits outside of our home and our children. And it's just, that's the generational curse that we need to do, is have that love and unconditional and that guidance and that structure and talk, communication.
And that's one of the things that like with the show, like when I was given the idea to do a podcast, it was kind of like the similar situation to you where people were telling me, hey, this is something you should do. So I wanted to make showing love the new cool thing to do. We
The
showing
new
people
norm.
love.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm reaching out to everybody that I know that likes this kind of material, and I want to bring them in on a project, like a really big group project, right? And the whole idea behind this was establishing the fact that everybody's not in competition. A lot of people wake up in the morning and the only thing they're in competition with is to be a better version of who they were yesterday.
Yep.
I know with me, I'm in competition with my old self, and for me, this has always been a redemption to clear my karma, right? Because I'm a real big believer in karma.
Yeah, same.
And I feel like if I would have just continued to live my life without any type of effort to change the bad that I did in the past, I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have the opportunity to do this, right? I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet the people that give me the luxury to do the things that I do. So this brings me to my next concept here, where it says visualize yourself calm, right?
Yeah.
This tip requires you to practice the breathing techniques you learn. After taking a few deep breaths, close your eyes and picture yourself calm. See your body relax and imagine yourself working through a stressful or anxiety-causing situation by staying calm and focused, right?
It just worked right now. I just literally did it and just felt calmer.
There you go.
The same way we create our hell, we can create our
Yes.
our own heaven,
Yes.
right? A lot of us, we look at worst case scenarios and everything, right? Your girlfriend don't text you back fast enough. Oh, she over there getting pounded out. You know what I'm saying? Or your homie don't call you back fast enough. You know, so, oh, you trying to play me. You trying to get over on me. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's really just something really simple, right? And you got to visualize yourself calm. You know what I'm saying? You got to, just like, and you can do this on a bigger picture with the world too. Like visualize the world in a place where people are not fighting over the color of their skin, right? And practice that in your circle.
Yeah.
Where that's not a topic of conversation. You would see, right? When people see that, they go to their four little friends, right? Now you see that this starts to be, when I'm around, we don't talk about race or nothing. It's not even a topic with my friends.
Absolutely.
I got friends of every color. It's never a topic. Unless somebody brings it out as we're talking about something that we've seen on TV or something.
That's
But
it.
it's never a topic. It's always about, yo, congratulations on
Yeah,
what you're
love.
doing. Congratulations on the baby. What can I do to help you? It's always lifting each other up. You get around these people that always try to knock you down, that's a personal problem that they're dealing with in themselves.
Absolutely.
Right? This is them not being able to visualize themselves in your state of mind. This is why they say you think you're better than yourself, right? What kind of things do you do to visualize yourself in states like maybe you're driving home from work and you're aggravated? And what steps do you do right there on the spot where you'd be like, you know what, it's not that deep. I'll be home soon with my kids. It's gonna be all right.
What I have to do is kind of cut the noise. So, you know, I know a lot of people, myself too. I definitely have my times, my car rides. You got your favorite songs playing, you cruising, everything's cool, but you're not really thinking about things you need to be thinking about. And if all you have is that time in your car, because we're so busy, you know, we got to get home as soon as you walk in, you got to get to what you got to get to. There's no more time to think. So now when you lay your head down again, you have another opportunity, but that's not the time to try to deal with your problems. Because now you're not going to sleep. And that creates another problem because sleep is, I mean, we can all agree that we need sleep and we need good sleep. And it's a huge part of our lives in order to function properly. So I, at times, just have a silent ride. As much as I want to play my music, I've had to tell myself, like, you know what? You've already had a lot going on. Just leave the music for later and process what's bothering you. You know, is it really bothering you that much, or is there another underlying issue that you need to address, and it's not really that problem that you just had? And just give yourself time to be in your thoughts and realize, like, no, this isn't as big as I thought it was. And think of something positive that's going to make you smile, or honestly, just put a smile on your face, even if it hurts. It helps. I've been very down, very sad when I lost my dog. It was so sad.
We just went through this. Me and my girl, we got the tattoos on her.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my little bell on my foot. We were super sad
about it.
It is, and it's like a family member. And then my kids never went through that, and they were right next to me going through. We found her on the highway, and it was very traumatic, you know. And I didn't know how I've never went through it before. I didn't know it was gonna hit me the way it hit me. Like, I found myself just sitting on the couch, like, oh no, my dog is gone.
And you know, one thing I've noticed too, like, no matter how much I grow and mature as a person, there's some things that always get me. No matter, I mean, I can know all these techniques. But somebody does something to my kids.
That trigger, yeah.
All of that goes out the window. And it's something that, like, you know, I have a daughter. And she's young. So, like, I'm probably going to be, like, in my mid-40s when she's a teenager.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if I'm going to make it to my 50s, right? Because I know how I am as an individual for certain things. And I'm trying, this is why I'm doing this. So I can learn.
It's therapeutic.
You know what I'm saying? So I can learn, so I can know that, you know, give my kids something. So I know I'm not going to kill her first boyfriend. And, you know, I don't want to be that dad. I don't want to be that dad. But I've already made up my mind that, you know, this is my daughter.
Yeah.
You know, and for my sons too. But, you know, for the little girl, it's a little bit more intense because it's like, that's your role as you got to protect her. And I try to, like.
I got you, Ammo, so I got you.
Well, you want to get in? Get him on the Discord. He can come on. You get him on the Discord.
Oh, he shared a book. There we go.
Shared a book. I got that book here.
I appreciate it.
So yeah, things like this is what we need to be doing. Sharing books with each other.
Yeah.
Right. A good gift to give somebody is a book.
Oh, love it.
I feel like you really love me. If you ever gave me a book, you love me because you know what I like and I love knowledge. Right.
Life's missing instruction manual.
You know, and we use a lot of these other. You know, we use religious texts and we use all these things. All of it has value. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It all has value because it's giving you a moral foundation. The family system is something that, here, let's look at some numbers. Before we, let's look at some of the numbers of the American family system today. Okay? Family life is changing. Two-parent households are on the decline in the United States as divorce, remarriage, and cohabitation are on the rise. And families are smaller now, both due to the growth of single-parent households and the drop in fertility. Not only are Americans having fewer children, but the circumstances surrounding parenthood have changed. While in the early 1960s, babies typically arrived within a marriage, today fully 4 in 10 births occur to women who are single or living with a non-marital partner. At the same time that family structures have transformed, so has the role of mothers in the workplace and in the home. As more moms have entered the labor force, more have become breadwinners, in many cases primary breadwinners in their families. What does this do to the family dynamic, right? This is a situation where now you making more money than your man, right? This creates attention within the household that really doesn't need to be
It
there
shouldn't,
when you're
exactly.
dealing with a mature man, right? It doesn't need to be like that. But a lot of these men are not working on themselves as individuals, right? So can you explain how is it being an independent woman, right? How do you balance that? You know, because I don't know, like some men are intimidated by that whole
Very.
concept.
If I had $1 for every time a man told me that, and it's crazy because it's like I'm a mother of 2 boys, and it's impossible for me as a woman to raise a man to be a man. I'm not a man. So one thing for me as a mother that I learned is from my mom, and I'm so grateful. She never talked bad about my dad or belittled him or anything. She always told me, you'll see it for yourself, and my boys, they do know their dads. I do have 2 dads. They know them, they see them, they love them dearly. Are they the best role models? No. But all I can do is never shun them. I let my kids' dads know, like, hey, thank you for being around. Thank you for doing the best that you feel is the best. If you're giving your best, that's all I can ask for.
Right, absolutely.
And I just live by example. I'm bettering myself. I know my kids' dad see the difference from who I was when, we were together to who I am now, whether they acknowledge it or not, it doesn't matter. I know they do. I can feel a level of respect that has been gained that wasn't there when we were together. And I appreciate that because you showing me that respect shows our children how they need to respect, and
absolutely.
I can only be that woman figure to allow my kids to know the type of woman to gravitate towards when they want to start their family. So I have to be that example at home and just not, like I said, belittle their dads and encourage them to have that relationship. And now that my kids are getting older, they see things and they bring, things up to my attention that they don't really appreciate from their dad. So now it gives this open forum for me to kind of, break it down a little bit. Like my oldest son came to me recently and he was like, hey, Mom, you and my dad both drink, and I've seen you, tipsy, drunk, and I've seen my dad, but you guys are 2 totally different people. Like my dad is kind of mean, like when he's drinking, and you're like even more happier than you already are. Why is this? And I told him this is an effect of not dealing with what you're going through and masking it. I don't drink to get away from my problems.
Right.
I try to avoid drinking when I'm going through problems so that when I do drink, it's not like,
you're in a happy state of mind already.
yeah, I'm like, I'm good. I'm,
Right.
It's
everything is
celebration.
nice.
It's a celebration.
It's a celebration.
Absolutely.
And I try to tell them, so at least now my kids, they see, okay, drinking is a thing, okay, but when should I not? And you've realized now that seeing your dad angry when he's drinking hopefully plants that seed for my son to realize, you know what, I need to avoid this so that I don't become that angry person and make my child feel the way that I feel.
Gotcha. So one thing I want to touch about before we close out here is this particular part about childcare and education, quality, availability, and parental involvement. So, like I touched on earlier, as far as generational curses being financial as well as psychological, right? They also can be educational, right? I know in the inner cities, getting an education was not something that was pushed in my household. It was always about, as soon as you're old enough to get a job, go out there and get a job. It was never about go out there and get knowledge. It was never about go out there and know thyself, right? It was never none of that. It was always go get money and bring money back home to the house. Well, how was I going to do this if I didn't know myself, what I was able to do, or had the knowledge to do it, right? So I'm going to read this little excerpt of this article. Many parents say that too much parental involvement in the child's education can be a bad thing. And about half of those with school-age children say they are satisfied with the level of their own involvement in their children's education. Still, more than 4 in 10 say they wish they could be more involved. This is particularly the case among Black parents. About 6 in 10 say they would like to be more involved, compared with the 4 in 10 with the white and Hispanic parents. Interesting, right? Childcare is a major concern for parents with children who are not yet school age. A majority of parents with one or more children younger than 6 say it's hard to find high quality, affordable childcare in their community. Among parents with school age children, about 4 in 10 say it's hard to find after school activities and programs that are both affordable and high quality. Black parents, as well as those with lower incomes, are more likely than other parents to say this is a challenge for them. What does this create, right? This creates, where do these kids go after school now, right? They go find each other. And if they're all coming from broken homes, right? Now they're all taking their toxic behavior and they're bringing it out for the world to see. You know what I'm saying? And it started at home with the parents. Yep. And sometimes it's not even that the parents are not bad parents.
Right.
They're not available.
Yeah.
Because the system of the world that we live in now requires the parents to be working at least 50, 60 hours a week. You know? So now our kids are spending the majority of their time listening to entertainers or listening to other children, right? Because that's what kids do. When they have problems, they call their friend. Man, my mom tripping, my dad tripping.
Just like us.
Yeah, the same thing we did. And they're sharing their toxic ideas with each other. And this is how they, that's where parenting comes in. When we're able to identify the problems that our kids are going to, right? I never feel like there's never too much. Like, I'm very, with my kids, I tell my kids, we have these conversations, the same ones we have in here. I have them with my kids, because I want them to never lose fact that knowledge is always going to be power.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So before we close out, I want you to know if you got any last points that you want to make before you go, anything that you want to touch on, and plug the show. Make sure you let everybody know where they can find you, hours. Just give them the whole thing.
My biggest thing that I just wanted to say was I had read something that I love, and it says the family that you come from is important, but the family that you create is a priority. And I tell myself that almost on a daily basis. So just take that and run with it. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. Life is Everywhere. Pretty much just pull up Google, type Life is Everywhere podcast, and however you listen to your favorite podcast, you can basically find me. And thank you so much in advance, and thank you to all my supporters that just are phenomenal.
I personally vouch for the podcast because it is one of the good ones. It's very intimate, it's very personal, right? So when you listen to it, you're gonna feel like you're speaking to her directly. That's part of the reason why I brought her on the show, because I felt like we didn't practice this show. Everything we did, it was just a natural, you know what I'm saying? I gave her just brief ideas of the topics, but when people are working on the same path and the same mindset, the universe is gonna do what it do. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody that tuned in. We got a lot of great episodes coming up. I'm gonna try to keep this up. The whole thing with me is I'm trying to bring us all together. So if you out there, you got art, you got music, you got things that from an educational perspective, come holler at me and we build. This is our show. She's here. She's not here as a guest today. She's here as co-host. You understand? There's a difference between a guest and a co-host. You know what I'm saying? That means that she had the same equal level of creative content that I did today. And it went smooth. There was no competition. Everything worked smooth. We're trying to provide an example of what people could do if they put their heads together and they're working on the same mindset. Yes. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Celina, I want to thank you. You did a wonderful job. Paul, I want to thank you. Congratulations on the baby again.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Peace out. See y'all Thursday.